When Stripe the caterpillar was born, he ate the leaf that he was born on and then ate the other leaves on the twig he was on, but he still was nagging more, not just hunger, but he had a desire to be something more. So he climbed down the tree, and then he met all kinds of other caterpillars, and he crawled around the grass with them eating. But one day, all the caterpillars started to go away. They began to crawl away very, very fast. And so, not wanting to be left out, he crawled away as well. And when he crawled away, after a while, he saw what everybody was crawling to, a large pillar that went up to the sky and into a cloud where he couldn't see the top. And as he got closer to the pillar, he realized it was a caterpillar pillar, that it was all caterpillars trying to get over and on top of each other so they could get to the top. And then he could hear them saying as he got closer, "Gotta get to the top, gotta get to the top, gotta get to the top." Well, as he began to crawl to the top, he had a nagging inside of him that maybe there wasn't anything up there, and maybe it wasn't the thing for him. One day he actually said that out loud, and when he did, a yellow caterpillar heard him, and she agreed. And so they came down off the caterpillar pillar, and they began to learn about each other, and they ate the grass that was around and fell in love. But after a while, Stripe had that feeling again, that feeling that something was missing. And he really felt like it was at the top of that pillar up in the cloud. So he told Yellow, and he left back to the caterpillar pillar. And before you know it, he was saying, "Gotta get to the top, gotta get to the top." Yellow, however, was very sad and left the place that they had been and crawled along on the ground until one day she looked up, and there on the end of a twig, there was a gray-colored caterpillar that was hanging by a thread, and then it was wrapping itself up in threads. She said, "What are you doing?" "I'm wrapping myself into a cocoon." "Why are you doing that?" "Because this way I'll be a butterfly." "Caterpillars don't become butterflies." "Oh, yes, they do. They're supposed to." "Well, how do you do it?" "Well, first, you have to allow yourself to wrap up in the cocoon and let your caterpillar die. And then your butterfly is inside of you to come out." Well, she watched and watched as the gray-colored caterpillar wrapped itself up. And right before it closed the very last edge of the cocoon, the gray caterpillar said, "You have a butterfly inside of you." Well, after he was wrapped up, Yellow climbed on the same twig and found that she had a web that came out of her, and she wrapped herself up, hoping and praying that the rain that would come and the wind that would come and the sun that would scorch, that wouldn't stop her from being a butterfly. She wrapped herself up. Meanwhile, for some time, Stripe was climbing and climbing and climbing. This time he climbed with very focused vision. He was going to get to the top. He didn't care who he stepped on or who he pushed down. He would get to the top. He was almost at the top when he heard someone said, "Push the ones above us down so we can be at the top." And then someone else said, "But there's nothing up here." He stopped. Nothing up there. But before he had time to think too long, everyone stopped and looked. Here came a yellow butterfly with light wings. And it flew up to near the top, and there it stopped. And it looked at Stripe in the eyes. And Stripe looked at Yellow back. And he wondered, was that nagging? Was it he was supposed to be a butterfly? That particular story is an excerpted, a reduced story of the story Hope for Flowers by Trina Paulus. And today, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, is how do you have hope when so much is going on around you, when you want to reach the very best you can be, and when you're afraid of what the wind and the rain and all those things can do. How do we have hope in all that? You know, there are a lot of bad things happening in our world today. Can you think of some bad things that you've heard other people, your parents, or yourself talk about or see? You know, Jesus talked about those bad things as well. Over in the scripture in Luke, he said that there would be times where nations would be against nations. Wars would happen. There would be torrents, and in the sea, there would be tsunamis as we know of them. There would be the heavenly bodies shaken above and the ground shaking below, the earthquakes. He said all this would happen, but he said it would all happen before he, the Son of Man, would come back and take people up to where God was. Take people to where God was. He gave a little story so people would understand what he meant. He went to a fig tree and said, look at the fig tree. You see the fig tree? And I know fig trees. There was one at Colonial Williamsburg where I worked. And that fig tree, I would watch it grow. And I remember watching it one time. And it would have those green leaves come up on it. And then the next thing would happen would be just a little green piece right there. That was not the fig. It was going to be the fig, but it wasn't ready yet. And then it would get a little bigger, but it wasn't ready yet. And a little bigger, and a little more round. It wasn't ready yet. And then it would turn that wonderful purplish color. And that's when you knew that the fig was ready. But you started to know the fig would be ready when you started with those green leaves coming up. And that's what Jesus said. When we see all these horrible things, when we see these things and we have anxiety, we don't need to worry. We need to have hope, because that's when we know Jesus is coming back. He's coming back for us. For those who are going to be in the story that I'm going to tell this to, I'm going to give each one of them a fig bar. And I hope that you'll go get a fig bar too. I don't think they made fig bars in Jesus' time, but I know they used figs and cakes. And as you eat the fig bar, I want you to remember what Jesus said to us. He said, be aware and pray so you don't be anxious, so you're not anxious about the things going on around you. And in Philippians, Paul tells us to not be anxious and to pray with prayers of request and give our petitions with thanksgiving. And we would receive the peace of Christ that knows no bounds. We will have things that make us anxious and that will be difficult all around us. But if we have hope in Jesus, one, we will be made into what we were meant to be, the butterfly, made to be the Son of God, the children of God. We will do well. And in the end, with hope and standing fast in who Christ is, we will have the opportunity to see Jesus come back and take us with him to a new heaven. And that will be really sweet.